The grand ballroom glimmered under crystal chandeliers. Champagne fizzed, laughter echoed, and flashes from cameras danced across marble floors. In the middle of it all, Ethan Caldwell, the city's youngest self-made CEO, stood arm in arm with his bride, radiating confidence and power. But as the crowd cheered for the perfect couple, the music suddenly faded. A frail voice whispered from the back, "Congratulations, sir." Every head turned. Standing near the entrance was a woman in a faded uniform, clutching a small, poorly wrapped box. The bride's smile froze. The guests chuckled. Ethan's jaw tightened. No one could believe it. His former maid had shown up, with a gift. Clara, mid-40s, small in stature but with kind, tired eyes, had worked in Ethan's mansion for years, silently, diligently, unseen. She'd been the one to prepare his morning coffee, press his suits, and clean the mess he left behind after long nights of business parties. No one noticed when she disappeared a few months ago, but tonight, here she was, dressed in the same faded gray uniform, her trembling hands clutching that wrinkled paper package. Whispers spread like wildfire. Is that the maid? She actually brought a gift? Must be something from the thrift store. Ethan's new wife, Vanessa, leaned in, smirking. Security should escort her out before she embarrasses us further. Ethan hesitated, his pride battling faint guilt. "It's fine," he muttered. "Let's see what she wants." Voice softens, music slows. Years earlier, Clara had been a widow struggling to raise her son. Working as Ethan's maid was her only income. She never complained, even when others mocked her old shoes or patched apron. She always smiled. Always said, "Work done with love never shames you." Ethan, then a rising entrepreneur, barely noticed her kindness. To him, she was invisible, another servant in the background. But one night, as he sat alone, stressed over his failing company, he'd found a note on his desk. It was from Clara. "Sir, I may not understand business, but I believe in people. You're kind deep down, don't lose that to money." He'd ignored it then. Thrown it away, maybe, and yet, somehow, that same warmth lingered in his memory. Clara slowly stepped forward through the crowd, her worn shoes clicking softly against the marble floor. Her gift, wrapped in plain brown paper tied with old ribbon, looked painfully out of place among the mountain of luxury boxes behind the couple. A guest laughed. "Did she wrap it in newspaper? How sweet." Another whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Maybe it's one of those cheap keychains that say good luck." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "This is ridiculous." But Clara didn't flinch. She smiled faintly and said, "It's just a small thing, sir. Something from the heart." The master of ceremonies awkwardly cleared his throat. Well, gifts are being collected near the stage," Ethan interrupted. "No. Let her give it to me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vanessa looked furious, but Ethan extended his hand. Clara stepped forward, handed the gift to him, and whispered, "You once gave me hope when I had none. I just wanted to return that." Then she bowed slightly and turned to leave. The moment she walked away, Vanessa's friends burst out laughing. "Hope? Is that what she's gifting? Maybe she wrote him a poem. Or a homemade trinket. How adorable." Ethan tried to brush it off. But his curiosity prickled. He looked down at the small, oddly heavy box in his hands. He began unwrapping it slowly, each tear of the paper echoing through the silent hall. The laughter quieted. Inside was an old, silver wristwatch. It was scratched, slightly rusted, and clearly secondhand. Laughter erupted again. A used watch? For a CEO? She must have found it in a junk shop. Even Vanessa giggled. "Honey, maybe it's symbolic. Like, time for a new maid?" The crowd howled. Ethan forced a polite smile, but something about the watch made his stomach twist. There were tiny initials engraved on the back, D.C. His smile faded. His pulse quickened. Years ago, when Ethan had just started his business, he'd borrowed money from one of his only friends, Daniel Carter. Daniel believed in him when everyone else mocked his crazy startup dreams. But during a car accident, Daniel had died, and Ethan never got to return the watch Daniel lent him for good luck. Ethan had lost it somewhere. He remembered the guilt that followed for years, that he'd assumed it was gone forever. Now, it was here. Clara had found it. The entire hall blurred around Ethan. The music, the laughter, even Vanessa's mocking voice, all faded. He clutched the watch with trembling hands and looked toward the exit. Clara was almost gone, walking quietly toward the door. He called out, voice cracking, "Clara! Wait!" The crowd turned. She froze, startled. "Sir?" Ethan stepped down from the stage, his polished shoes echoing. "Where did you get this watch?" Clara blinked softly. "You dropped it years ago, sir. I found it under the old car you sold. I kept it safe because I knew it meant something. I tried to return it before, but," her eyes glistened, "you were too busy to notice." You could hear a pin drop. Every mocking guest lowered their gaze. Even Vanessa's smirk vanished. Ethan's throat tightened as he whispered, "This watch belonged to my best friend. I thought it was gone forever." He turned to the crowd, voice trembling with shame and gratitude. "And while everyone here brought gold, she brought memory. While we flaunted price, she gave meaning." The hall fell silent. The chandeliers seemed to glow softer, humbler. Ethan approached Clara, eyes wet. "You didn't just return a gift, Clara. You returned a piece of my soul." Vanessa tried to interject. "Ethan, honey, it's just a..." He cut her off sharply. "Just a watch?" "No, Vanessa. It's a reminder that class isn't measured in wealth. It's measured in heart." As Ethan thanked Clara, she hesitated. "I wasn't sure you'd even remember it, sir. But I'm glad I could give it back before I left the city." "Left?" Ethan asked. She nodded softly. "My son, he was accepted into university overseas. I sold everything I had to help him go. I wasn't planning to attend tonight, but," her voice cracked, "I wanted to say thank you. You once advanced my salary when my husband was in the hospital. That saved his last days. I never forgot." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. He had forgotten that gesture entirely. What to him was a small act had meant the world to her. Now the same woman who was mocked moments ago stood before him with more dignity than anyone in the room. Ethan turned to the crowd. "All of you laughed at her gift. But this woman carries more grace than anyone here tonight." He took off his designer watch, worth more than most cars, and placed it in Clara's palm. "This means nothing compared to what you gave me." Gasps echoed again. The cameras flashed. The moment went viral the next morning, not for the wedding's glamour, but for the humility that shattered pride. Weeks later, headlines read, "CEO honors former maid in emotional gesture. Internet hails him for humanity." But Ethan didn't care about headlines. He visited Clara's small home one last time before she moved. There, on a shelf, was the silver watch, gleaming under morning light. Next to it sat a note, "Time doesn't change people, sir. Choices do." He smiled softly. Outside, the city buzzed, but for once, he felt peace. True worth isn't wrapped in ribbons or diamonds. Sometimes, the cheapest gift carries the richest memory, and in a world obsessed with appearances, humility remains the rarest treasure of all.